This is another live radio link-up brought to you by the Government Communications GCIS. GCIS. GCIS.
The time has gone 15 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock, and it's a very good evening to you. Welcome to our broadcast, and it's brought to you courtesy of Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, in partnership with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. This is the very first Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Rights show that we're going to have, and it's going to be happening every Thursday from now on. So quite excited as a team. All the team members from the GCIS radio unit have joined us to really start this whole journey and making history really in a way, and thanks to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development for having done this for us. So for the next 20, now this is the 26th episode, so for the next 25 years to come, we're really going to learn a little bit more about what the department is all about and so forth. My name is Karabalans Sitolo Saba Pedil Matebele ke thabela go ba lo ena mo maitshubeng a logono ra wa mogela lo ena motheletsi mo khatsong ya rena ya maitshuba logono yona o itlishetšwa ke ba Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, ga mmogo le kgoro ya toka le tšwelopele ya molaotheo, Justice and Constitutional Development. Simamele nawe mlaleli kuleli lethu usilethula ngabakwa Government Communication and Information System, the GCIS, nomnyango we Justice and Constitutional Development. Igama lami Karabolans, sizoba sonke kuzokushaya uhora lescom eshakalombili. And joining us in the studio, we are very happy to welcome Deputy Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Deputy Minister John Jeffrey. It's a very good evening to you, DM, and thank you so much for having taken time to be with us.
Sure, thanks for having me, and good evening to all the people listening in.
Right, here's an invitation to you as a listener to take part in this show by calling in with your questions or comments on our toll-free number. It's 0800 142 446. I'll repeat that number again. It's a toll-free number, by the way. So in other words, if you're going to be using a telecom line or your landline, you're not going to be paying a single cent for this. If you're using a cell phone, however, make the initial call. Our producers will take your details as fast as possible and then call you back, in other words, saving you costs. So thank you so very, very much for that one there. So 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. You can check us out on Facebook as well at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. We welcome your tweets as well on Twitter. You can tweet us at DOJCD_ZA. Let me repeat that one again, at DOJCD_ZA. And you're also welcome to chat to us. This is very important. Very welcome to chat to us in any language of your choice. If we don't understand you, we might ask you to translate in English, but geez, I mean, really, just go for it. In any language of your choice, you're more than welcome to engage us. Without wasting any further time, the Deputy Minister quite excited to be here as well. I saw and we were having a chat quite earlier, and I'm looking forward to learn as well about the department, DM. Maybe let's start there. Maybe let's talk about the department itself, the mandate and the vision perhaps of the department, DM.
Okay, Karabo, the mandate's twofold: to ensure access to justice for all, and secondly, the department has a responsibility to promote the Constitution and contribute in building a human rights culture in our country.
Mm-hmm. Just like any other department, I believe the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, they've got priorities as well, which is very, very important.
Well, look, there's a number of priorities. It's a very big department with a number of areas. Obviously, the one that everybody knows about on the one hand is the courts, right. Criminal courts when somebody's been accused of committing a crime, and civil courts when there's a dispute between two individuals. But even at the courts, there are various other services offered. For example, maintenance. People will go to a court to claim maintenance from the other parent of the child. The issue of getting a protection order in the case of somebody being abused at home, a domestic violence protection order, right. a protection from harassment order. Then there's the Master's Office, which deals with deceased estates where people have passed away and what happens to their property after they've passed away. Through to legal aid, where people get representation mainly in criminal courts or in criminal cases, but they can also get some assistance in civil matters. A range of issues.
All right, that is the voice of the Deputy Minister, John Jeffrey, right here in our studio, in our show. And later on, you're going to be giving us a call on the toll-free number should you have any questions or comments. The number is very, very easy. It's 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446. We're talking with some of the colleagues from the department, and we were saying there's a misunderstanding that's there. People misunderstanding this department that we're talking about now and the Department of Correctional Services, and perhaps one or two differences that you can maybe want to bring to the picture, DM?
The issue is they're two separate departments. Before the last elections, there was a Minister of Correctional Services and a Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. The President decided to combine the two matters under one minister. So you currently have a Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, that's Minister Michael Suter. Right. You then have two deputy ministers, one for Correctional Services, that's Deputy Minister Tabang Makwetla, and one for Justice and Constitutional Development, and that's me. But the departments remain separate, so it's not as if the departments have been merged. They're separate, and they will continue to remain separate. So there's a Commissioner of Correctional Services, there's a Director General of the Department of Justice.
All right. Now, Minister, I would like we know that we've got quite a couple of programs that are still to come every Thursday, like I said before. There's quite a couple of them that we're going to do. But for now, I'd just like us to maybe just go in explaining some of these services that the department has. I'm talking about the maintenance courts. I'm talking about the master services and so forth, Minister. Maybe let's start with this one, which is very popular. We'll get into it as a program by itself in the future. But for now, maybe let's just a bit of explanation when it comes to the maintenance courts and how they work and why they're there and so forth.
They're there largely to ensure that children whose parents are no longer married to each other or were never married are properly supported. So if the one parent, usually the man, is working and the mother is not employed or not earning so much, then the mother can approach the maintenance court to get a court order that the father must pay maintenance. The one thing to understand is the maintenance, the requirements basically are that the person who's looking for support must be unable to maintain himself or herself. Usually the child, obviously. The family member, and this is a very important point, the family member from whom maintenance is claimed must be able to afford the maintenance. So if you're a father and you're unemployed, you've got no income, you've got no property or anything, unfortunately you can't be forced to pay for the maintenance of your child. And where we've just passed an amendment in Parliament, it's halfway through, it's been through the National Assembly, it's now with the National Council of Provinces, to tighten up on people who default, who don't pay their maintenance, and to understand that those are people who the court has found can pay maintenance. And obviously, if your circumstances change, if you've been ordered to pay maintenance and you lose your job or something like that, all you've got to do is go back to the court and tell the magistrate, my circumstances have changed, I no longer can afford to pay this amount. But what we're trying to catch is the people who can afford to pay and don't.
Which brings me to my next question. This one coming from Facebook, and thank you so much to Melanie Love, who's taken some time to post a question on our Facebook page. Now, what services do you offer when it comes to maintenance and the maintenance defaulter being in contempt of court? And we've just answered a bit of that, but she would like to know, how does one enforce a maintenance order? And if defaulters are in contempt of court, what are the procedures that can be taken against them?
Obviously, if the person is in default, the person claiming maintenance can start taking steps such as attaching their property. There is a campaign by the department to chase up and follow up with people who are meant to pay maintenance who don't. There was a report in the newspaper today of a Constantia mother of 3 in Cape Town who got a total of 450,000 rand in unpaid child maintenance, which is the highest amount of arrears of maintenance yet to be paid to a beneficiary in the Western Cape. But there are measures, as with any debt, to force a debtor to pay. One of the changes that's coming into effect with the maintenance amendment bill that's with, as I said, the National Council of Provinces, is that maintenance defaulters will be blacklisted and not be able to obtain credit.
Right.
And the idea there is to increase the pressure on the maintenance defaulters.
All right, let's go to our telephone lines, 0800 142 446. Let's talk to Mama Gonyani from Newcastle. Good evening to you, Mama Gonyani.
Yeah, Baba.
Ninjani mama?
Ngiphilile njani?
Siyaphila mama. Umbuzo wakho thini?
Ngicela ukukubuza mina, ngicela ukubuza ukuthi uma inkantolo iyakwazi ukuthi ivali ibophe ingatshelanga izizathu ugwetshwe nje ithi ngiyagweba awuzange enkantolo so ngiyagweba uhambe uyovalela mobuza ukuthi ngiboshelwane ingakuchazeli ithi wena awuzange enkantolo ngesikhathi esize mobuza ukuthi ngangade ngibizoba nencwadi yakhishwa ngayithola ngambizelani yayingibizelani inkantolo yayingibizelani inkosi enkantolo na ingasichazi ithi suka lapho ithi ngenza ubulungisa mawufuna ukwazi ukuthi ubulungiswa abani ithi ngenza ubulungiswa kubantu ababekade bekubizile la babengibizela ini
Okay.
Ingakuchazeli ithi suka lapho bakuthathe bayokuvalela.
All right. No, ngiyabonga for umbuzo wakho. All right, let's go to another caller quickly, all the way from Greytown. Munyaka, good evening to you, Munyaka.
Yebo baba.
Ninjani baba?
Khona baba.
Ngiyaphila, umbuzo wakho uthini?
Mina ngicela ukubuza ukuthi ulokhuzane amahhovisi akwa justice kwaZulu Natal ake amama atholakala kanjani amama lapho?
Kuphi khona kwa Greytown?
Yebo.
Ngiyabonga baba, sizombuza ubaba Jeffrey.
Ya makuhlamba khona acela ngishasha inamba yawo la sokwazi ukuxhumana.
Okay. Baba Munyaka, thank you so much for your call. Ngiyabulela. All right, 012, I beg your pardon, 0800 rather, 142 446. My producer cracking himself up. He knew this was going to happen. 0800 142 446. It's gone 28 minutes after the hour, 6 o'clock. It's a very good evening to you, by the way, if you just joined us. My name is Karabalan, so thank you so much that you're part of the show. It's a big one. It's one of the biggest that we've ever done, actually. It's a 26-episode series of programs. I tell you what, we could not wait the whole day, DM, we were talking about this, and we could not wait while the branding was coming in and organizing sound and all of that. Everybody's excited about this because we all understand that we're going to learn quite a lot about justice and the Constitution of South Africa as well, and so is our listeners. For instance, I'm looking at the Twitter now, and I've got Ivor Swart, and Ivor just wants to find out that he's applied for criminal expungement and was rejected, and he was told that he needs to apply to a presidential pardon. Can you explain maybe the difference, DM, when it comes to the expungement of a criminal record and a presidential pardon?
Okay. Shall I start with that one and then come on to the
That's
other
great.
two questions?
That's it.
The law was changed not so long ago. Before, you could not get your record expunged. And I think it was about 2008, we passed an amendment which provided that in minor cases you could get your record expunged. And I think there's going to be a program dealing with it specifically, but it is if you were not sentenced to a term of imprisonment without the option of a fine, and 10 years have elapsed, then after the 10 years, you can apply for your record automatically to be expunged. If you were a child, that is a person under the age of 18, when the offence was committed, then you only have to wait 5 years. But it doesn't apply to people who have committed sexual offences and fraud and matters like that. If you don't fall within that category, then unfortunately the only route you can follow is to apply for a presidential pardon. The law is being looked at as to can't we make further changes to allow people to get expungements more easily? Can't we allow a discretion on the part of the minister, for example? Because at the moment, the expungement is automatic. If you fit within that category, nobody's got to think about it. You qualify. Whereas if you don't, the only route is a presidential pardon.
All right, and then we had a caller, and I will respond to. We will actually respond to Mamunyakani just now in a short bit.
Well, just on her question, I wanted to know: was she speaking about a criminal arrest or a civil arrest?
We'll find out. Maybe let's get my producers to actually just get that in detail, to call the person in detail and find out exactly what type of arrest it was.
Well, look, maybe to help, because in the past, I think before 94, people could be arrested if they hadn't paid their debts, and they could be put in prison until they paid their debts. That has long been abolished. So you can't be arrested for not paying your debts. I imagine she's then talking about a criminal arrest, and then you've got to appear within in court within 48 hours. The 48 hours does not include weekends. So if you get arrested on a Friday, they don't have to bring you to court on Sunday because the court's not sitting.
Right.
You have to be brought to court by Monday.
Right.
You can, though, apply for bail at any time, even over the weekend.
Now, here's one question that Mamunyakan has asked, and it's this one here. Can the police arrest you without explaining to you what they're arresting you for?
I would imagine they should tell you why you're being arrested. I would think it's a problem to be arrested without knowing why.
If you get arrested, you're not read your rights, can you refuse arrest if your rights are not read to you?
No, I think it would be better to. My fear, if somebody resists arrest, then that may be an additional charge. But I think the key issue is you don't have to make any statement.
Correct.
Unless you are legally represented, or unless you want to. You have the right to remain silent.
All right, 0800 142 446. Let's go to the telephone lines again, and I believe I'm speaking to Babu Zulu. Good evening to you, Babu Zulu. Okay, I think we've lost that caller there. We had another question coming from Munyaka, and he just wanted to find out the justice officers in Greytown.
Yeah, look, the regional office, which is effectively the provincial office of the department in KwaZulu-Natal, is in Durban. Then I suppose the place to access justice is the court, and it would then be the magistrates' court in Greytown, and so that's where services such as criminal matters, civil matters, small claims court. We've got one in Greytown. We don't have one in Kranskorp yet, and domestic violence matters, maintenance, those kinds of services would be accessed. As far as the Master's Office, deceased estates, if the value of the deceased estate, the value of the property of the late person is less than 50,000, then it can be reported to the Magistrates Court in Greytown.
All right, you can hook us up on Facebook at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. That's how you can be in touch with us via Facebook. Otherwise, you can tweet us on Twitter at DOJCD_ZA, at DOJCD_ZA. Otherwise, 0800 142 446. Dominique, all the way from Tembisa. Good evening to you, Dominique. All right, Dominic is not there. All right, we don't have callers at the moment, but 0800 142 446. That number is a toll-free number if you're going to be calling via the landline. Otherwise, you can use your cell phone, and we can quickly get our producers to call you back, in that way saving you costs. 0800 142 446. 0800 142 446. Okay, we've touched a little bit on maintenance, and we'll get into details on that in our coming shows. Let's go for a bit for the issue that's got to do with master services. Maybe let's start there, DM, for those people who don't understand the term master services and what it's all about. Let's maybe just unpack it for them.
Again, I think there's a program on the master services, but they largely deal with what is called deceased estates. A estate is basically your property.
Right.
So your the debts that you owe, the amount of money that you have, the amount of assets that you have in your estate, and when a person, and then a deceased is obviously a dead person, a late person. What happens when a person passes away is that the responsibility is to collect all the assets, all the property, all the money that they owned, property not just being land,
Right.
But everything they owned, to settle the debts that they owed, and then to distribute the property according to the will, if they left a will, or according to the rules of intestate succession, if they didn't leave a will. The other issue that the Master's Office also does is with insolvency. When somebody goes bankrupt, they deal with that as well, but that's another matter.
All right. And then there's a difference between, I believe, DM, when it comes to child courts and maintenance court. Here comes the word again, maintenance, but we're not going to deal with that necessarily. But a lot of people confuse child court related matters with that of maintenance. They have an intellect at some point, but they differ.
Look, I think with regard to the Master's Office, you may be talking about the Guardians Fund, which is the fund that money where a parent passes away, and the child is then looked after by somebody else. The money left to that child to support that child won't just be paid over to the guardian, but will be paid into a special fund called the Guardians Fund, so that there's basically control to ensure that child is looked after while they're growing up, rather than paying it to a guardian who then spends all the money in one go, and there's no money for the child to be supported in the latter years of their childhood.
And does the child courts, DM, also got to do with the whole issue of guardianship as well?
Well, yes. You have a children's court, and they would decide on issues such as guardianship, on adoption. So if you want to, they deal also with foster care. If you want to apply for a foster care grant, it would be the children's court magistrate who would decide whether you qualify. So they're largely a civil court deciding on issues relating to the child.
Right.
We also have a child justice court, which is a criminal court where the child is charged with a crime, and that's a special magistrates court, effectively, to deal with the child. There's different procedures to try and get an assessment from a probation officer as to the state of the child, whether they should be held in custody, whether they can be released into the care of their parents or guardians. And there's an effort to, as far as possible, not have children going through the criminal justice system, have them diverted onto other programs. The aim of the system is to correct the wrongdoing on the part of the child, rather than punishing them.
Right. It's all those different types of courts, that and more, that we're going to deal with in the next programs. But I don't want to leave this one out, DM, just before we take callers quickly. And I see we've got a couple of callers here. But the one that small claims courts, what are those?
What they say, they deal with small claims. If the amount owed, so it's a civil matter, it's between two people. If the amount owed is less than 15,000 rand, then you can bring the case in the small claims court. And in the small claims court, I had a tweet from somebody just now asking, did you need a lawyer? Lawyers are not allowed. So the idea is to enable people to have the dispute settled for free before a small claims court commissioner. The small claims court commissioner will play a more active role in the proceedings, asking questions and things like that. And we're trying to set up small claims courts in every magistrates court in the country.
All right, let's take callers quickly. 0800 142 446. Do we have Dominic from Tembisa? Dominic, good evening to you. Good evening to you, Dominic. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Sipho from Tegwini.
Yes, Lekai.
Rona Lekai. Come on, give Dominic a bulelang. Okay, Dominic, I'm going to ask you,
hello.
Dominic or Sipho, can I ask you to please close your radio down? Please, can I ask you to close your radio down before we talk, please?
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Lekai.
Rona Lekai, hopolo radio lang na letswal.
Yes.
Ron, nka se bolelwe wena o se o tswalle radio ya
Hello.
ke a go kwa.
Hello.
All right, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. Do we have another call on the line? Is it Dominic Sipho? Dominic Sipho? All right, Sipho calling all the way from eThekwini. It's a very good evening to you, Sipho. Sipho, good evening.
Yebo sawubona baba.
Ninjani baba?
Hayi sikhona siphola eThekwini baba emawodi.
Ngiyakuzwa uyahleka. Ngiyakuzwa uyahleka ungathi yababona labafana bayadlala lapha e-studio. Ngifuna ukufaka isicathulo. Kunjani baba?
Angikhona ngiyabeza ngiyababona ngengodo baba.
Awuzwe kubuzwa ukuthi
baba umbuzo wami uthi la kulokhuzeni enkantolo kunalento leyo ukuthi mhlambe makuthola ukuthi abantu ababoshiwe mhlambe bangaphezulu koyedwa bese omunye bese enziwa ilokhuza i-state witness ukuze convictwe mhlambe abanye abantu umbuzo wami usekutheni mhlambe akuyona yini i-bribery in discuss leyo ngoba phela aya-withdraw amacala kulo ozoba i-state witness bese beconvictwa laba abanye. Umbuzo wami wokuqala loyo. Owesibili umbuzo ilento ye-maintenance ukuthi abantu bazo-blacklist. Saze savelela mama samadoda. Kodwa-ke umbuzo wami usekutheni uma ngi-already blacklisted yini ezomlahlekela uma ngabe kuwukuthi-ke mhlawumbe vele ngi-blacklisted bazokwenze njani lapho mama ukuthi angondli. Ngiyabonga uSipho Mbonambi la eThekwini.
Baba uMbonambi, siyabonga baba. Awuzweke 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. Let's go to another call on the line. Caller, good evening to you. What is your name?
Hello, Lekai.
Rona Lekai.
Rona.
Ke bolela mang?
Mokgadi le Tembisa.
Mme Mokgadi le gona? Ya putswela le reng?
Ke na le putisho iri ana ho diretse motho protection order o protectile ha ka nna. Why ke bitsa putso ka hobane motho gona gore o diretse protection order a o tsene extreme como a o diretse se and o kry le ha o reporta go molaong ha ona ntse diragalang and then engwe putisho shi a ke gona le ba try le ropele le motho ga di tile a ya tele na go itsene ile ka kwa hantsi mo di FN le mo di tabeng ba re batho ba tswang jele ba re ba amohele setšhabeng ba amohelehe ka ska ba gaphela go ntle. Okay, o krele re motho o nyaka madulo ha wa fumane a fitlhamo wena a o fa madulo a o botsa gore ke change and a o bonse change eo mara ka morao ha nako o krele gore o direla something embine o bo fonera ile go motho o mkhamo nnantse a saina a tsena under correctional service. o kry nanta saena 1 2 3 motho a o dire something empe a tshabe o bo fonela correctional service e le re ntse ba tla ba tlo mo sainisa ba o fe di phone number ba re ha o tsenya o re founele mo nomoreng e so ha o ba founela o ba botsa hore motho ona o mo so o dirile so ba re mo wena ba re ba ka sone o thusa otherwise when o tsamaye o inyakela yena and then o ba founele o ba botsa hore o mafubane na ana ke motho tshwantse a dire diana re ba amohele batho ba ile khale ba ile tjele or re sa amohela na ke tla utlwela mo FM
ke le bogalo wena mamkhadi gore o ile wa tsana go gore o re letse mogala mo khazong ya rena ya botshegomelo gono. By the way, you can speak to us in any language of your choice, English, Afrikaans, isiZulu, Xhosa, all the languages in South Africa. Welcome. This is your show. We call it Live Your Right. Let's talk justice. Let's go all the way to Uppington, I beg your pardon, and we're speaking to George. George, good evening to you.
Hi, Karabo. How are you?
I'm good, and you, George?
All right.
Excellent. And, what is your question or comment?
Good evening to the DM, and thank you to the department for recognizing that community radio is a platform that they can drive their messages through. DM, the current public discourse is really with regard to some of the judgments made by the judiciary against the executives and statements made by some of the most senior of the ruling party in relation to this. I know that the president will be meeting with Chief Justice, and some people say that the executive and ruling party members want to steamroll the judiciary through these pronouncements against certain judgments. Do you think that we might be going into a situation where judges are under pressure to not rule against the executive or government, and where will they see the public confidence with regard to the independence and fairness of the judicial system? And should we be worried about this public space?
All right. Is that all, George?
That will be all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I thank you for having taken some time to chat to us. 0800 142 446. It's a toll-free number if you're calling from a landline. 0800 142 446. Otherwise, if you want to chat to us via Twitter, you're more than welcome to hook us up at DOJCD_ZA at DOJCD_ZA. Huitsi Mudimu. Yeah, no, let's alle mafikeng. Arutwe he, Huitsi Mudimu. Ka dumedisa lwena.
Ntate le kae?
Re tele ka ntate.
Mo mo se ra bolokile right.
Arutwe he.
Ntate ke go itse Modimo ka lebitso ne ke founa ke le mafikeng mo.
Right.
So ne ke batla go tseba gore ntate ke na le gona le ba actually ne. Ba le gore ne ke ha ke tse gore go etsagalang ga le ba nthoga ka go motsing. So ne ke botsa gore ne ke ka re ga ke thulaganyo go ka dirwa yang ka bone ka re ne di ka tla tlhoka ka small claim court and that so ne ke botsa gore dirwang ka bone go se ka mo sone ka go tsoga ke phakeng lano ne ke kopa fela le nthabe botlhale gore nka go kae.
All right, 100%. Is that all that ke yona fela potso na le yona?
Le nngwe ke because ko la pele ntate mo go lo ntshitse le la go go gae o sile ntlone so la tsa go di isa ampleletse gore ne ke ntwe ke ka go itsogela wena ke a ke mo lefatsheng so kama sabina isa a ngwa di segope so ne ke botsa re ke bereka.
Okay, 100%. That's got to do with the whole issue that we're talking about, master's courts and so forth. But we'll deal with it. Thank you so much, Huitsi Mudimu. All right, 0800 142 446, 0800 142 446. That's our toll-free number. And if you want to hook us up on Facebook, it's very easy at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Otherwise, our Twitter handle at DOJCD_ZA. I'm saying it in a singing way so you can remember it. And I think DM is quite pleased with that. We'll find out about my singing later, though. A whole lot of questions came through, DM, but the one that I would like to touch on very quickly before we forget it is this one that George came through with. Do you want to deal with that quickly, DM?
Okay. You know, we're a democracy. People can basically, you know, are free to comment on whatever they want. I wouldn't have thought that you know, there are no holy cows. I wouldn't have thought that being critical of something is going to intimidate people. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the judiciary had a meeting yesterday. and they've set up a process to look at engaging with the executive. They're going to be meeting with the president. I wouldn't have thought that criticizing judges puts them under pressure, and I don't think it's something to be worried about. I think it's something natural, and the judiciary criticize us publicly. So I don't think it's a big issue, and I would be surprised if anyone is feeling intimidated by it.
Right. Okay, then we had a caller, Mokhadi, and there's one question by Mokhadi that's almost similar to that one of Huiti Mudimu. It's got to deal with protection orders. Huiti Mudimu says he's being intimidated continuously and he wants to find out exactly what he can do with it. Well, the one answer could be linked to protection order, but Deputy Minister, you'll deal with that. But Mokhadi, on the other hand, says, when I do have that protection order, how far does it go in terms of protecting me? How long can it last? What type of protection orders are they?
Let's just start with it this way. If you feel you need a protection order, go to your magistrate's court and speak to the staff at the court. Find out who is dealing with dealing with protection orders, and make your statement to them, and they would advise you as to whether you qualify. It works and to get a protection order, you've largely got to show that you're under some kind of threat. The law is quite creative. It's a new law. Even if you've been receiving threats by SMS, for example, the police have to assist you in tracing that person, even if you don't know the identity. But the protection order works in two parts. You put forward your case and you get what's called an interim order. So it's a temporary order. Right. That then gives the person against whom the order is made, that gives you the protection, but it then gives the person against whom the order is made the opportunity to come to court on what's called the return date. So you get it for a temporary period, and then the matter is set down for a particular day. And if the person against whom the order is made disagrees and says you're not telling the truth, or you didn't tell the magistrate the truth, then they can come to court and present their side of the story. And the magistrate then decides who's telling the truth. Witnesses can be called, whatever, and the magistrate will then decide what happens. And once the order is made final, it is then final. It is then there forever. But if the magistrate, and if the person doesn't come to court, then the order would probably be made final almost automatically. If the person against whom the order is made does come to court and disputes it, it would be up to the magistrate to decide who's telling the truth and whether the order does deserve to be made. So I hope that answers the question, but it's two stages. Right. A temporary one where the other side don't have to know about it, and then when it gets made final, that's when the person against whom the order is made has the opportunity to come and state their side of the case and say, no, this order shouldn't be made final. Once the order is made, then if you continue to be harassed, then that person is breaking a court order and steps would be taken against them.
All right. And can one lose their protection order? For instance, if I have a protection order against somebody, are there instances where I can lose it, DM? What circumstances would then make me lose it?
Well, as I said, it's mainly two parts, and it's the interim order, and you'd lose it if it doesn't get made permanent, and you'd lose it if you didn't have a strong enough case to argue why it should be made permanent. But if you've got a permanent order, then no, the other side would have to probably bring a special application to say that you've now to get that order rescinded, basically.
That will take obviously.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, once the order's made final, it's there permanently, unless the other side takes steps to have it rescinded for whatever reason.
All right. 0800 142 446 0800 142 446. That is our toll-free number. Otherwise, if you'd like to tweet us, you're more than welcome to do that at DOJCD_ZA. At DOJCD @_ZA. Otherwise, you can hook us up on Facebook as well. Very, very easy. That is our Facebook page at the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And we'll definitely deal with some of the questions or comments that you might be having. Let's go back to Sipho, who called in earlier on. And here's an interesting one, DM. He says the law having to, say a group of people are arrested and the one or two are identified to turn state witnesses. He says, isn't that some form of bribery from the law side?
The state witnesses, the co-perpetrators, they would be encouraged to testify by being given immunity from prosecution. Usually it would be the court that would determine whether, in other words, the judge or the magistrate, whether they should be given immunity, and that would depend on the quality of their evidence, whether it is reliable, whether it is honest. If there's been any bribery or any sort of pressure, then it would be up to the defense, the lawyers representing the accused, to try and get that out, to question the state witness about that. But it is quite a difficult issue. There was quite a lot of controversy over the murder of Brett Kebbel, as to whether the right people were charged with his murder, and whether the wrong people were used as state witnesses.
All right. And then the other one...
And sorry, that decision as to who to use is with the prosecuting authority.
Right. The other one from Sipho was the issue of maintenance. And he says, and he actually exclaimed to say, oh, goodness me, men are in trouble. I don't know about that. But if you're blacklisted, for instance, already, about maybe other issues, and you still cannot pay your maintenance, what's going to be done then to that person?
Well, the pressures on you increase. But let me again stress that the new blacklisting coming in is shouldn't affect people who can't afford to pay. So, as I said, the maintenance order is not given automatically.
Right.
There has to be an inquiry into whether the person whose maintenance has been claimed from can afford to pay. How much are they earning? How many other dependents have they got? Obviously, if they would rather pay their DSTV subscription rather than maintenance for their child, the court is not going to be particularly sympathetic to that. But if they've got a number of other children that they're supporting, that would be taken into account. So the amount that's set is after an inquiry into how much do they have. As I said, if their circumstances change, if they lose their job, they should go back to court to tell the magistrate, I can't afford this amount of maintenance anymore. So the blacklisting is for those people, and there are unfortunately a number of them, who for some reason can afford to pay but won't. Maybe because they fell out with the mother of the child. They've got a grudge against the mother or something like that. But they don't want, or they would rather spend the money on DSTV or a new car.
New car,
than paying for their kids.
Which is not right, actually. Just a couple of minutes before 7 o'clock, if you've just joined us, it's a very good evening to you. Welcome to this broadcast, a very, very informative one that's going to take place from now on every Thursday, every week, meaning that you and I are going to be informed as far as justice and constitution in South Africa is concerned. We're taking your calls on 0800 142 446. Let's go all the way to Pietermaritzburg, the city of mist, if I can call it that. If you drive around Pietermaritzburg around about this time and in the early hours of the morning, you'll be really surrounded by mist. Vusmuzi. Kunjani baba? Ngiyaphila. Mangiza lapho ePietermaritzburg kube khona phela ngizokubingelela.
hayi ngizobe ngikhona lokhu kanjani
awuzweke umbuzo wakho uthini baba
ya kunalokhu sinobela usihlahla sikhuma ngilalela umgungudo FM 106.7
awuzweke
ya ngithi la ngicela ukubuza into ekhulunywa la eSouth Africa bakhala ngokuthi isikhathi esiningi mabe ukuqhula icala lomuntu ongenamali nomuntu onemali lo nemali iyawina lo ongenamali akawini ngicela ukubuza ukuthi yiphi indlela elandelwa ibhekwa ngayo amacala ukuthi leli cala leli kanje singawina lo ukuze kwazi ukuthi be clear sonke yabonga ngizolalela emsakazweni
awuzweke. Thank you so much to Vosmuzi for having called. Then let's go to another caller, and my producer for some reason is trying to be creative. Okay, he says Bra Ali. Okay, let's take Bra Ali. Bra Ali in Glencowie. Okay, I don't think Bra Ali is there. Let's move on to another caller. Puselezo go Sosha. Give me Bra Ali.
Yeah.
Hey Bra Ali. My presenters about road at the side. Bra Ali. What is your question or comment?
Generally, a very serious thing.
Yeah.
Car marriage, ne?
Okay.
Clear the certificate. Ja marriage. Renarja tribal. Renarja kereke. Renarja magistrate. Now, I just want to know which one carries more weight. Say Ali Awafile. Koko wakona kasi sa kereke sa tribal koba sa magistratana.
Okay. Kena fela question na Leona Bra Ali.
Yeah, kira ko and then tanabaka msajaka oto chia se ki shokofito gore I ki Bra Ali.
Okay. Bra Ali, you've said initially that it's a serious problem that you have. So basically, this is not a general question. We'll pose that question to the DM quickly. But what I would like to do as well is to get your details down so that one of our officials can give you a call so they can maybe just start taking steps in helping you with the problem that you have in your marriage. And hopefully everything will go accordingly. And we pray for all the best. Thank you so much for calling in.
Sure.
Itara Bra Ali. There we go. Arego Sosha. Puseletso.
Ntate.
Baga go termina se go di caravelengwa.
Ba tshisa matlakala.
There we go. Puse, what's your question or comment?
Okay, my comment is about the steps Justice is saying with regard to whatever to maintenance thing.
Right.
And that guy who was not maintaining his child, then the department by and Shohoroba deducted the money from the father's pension. So what I want to say to the DM, I want to say big up to that because it shows that my child is your child. The department is also taking care of our kids for these irresponsible fathers.
Thank you so much, Puselezo, for your words of encouragement. We really appreciate it. And the DM is sitting right next to me, and he's nodding with appreciation of what you're saying. We really, really thank you so much for having brought that to our attention. If you've missed out on what Puselezo is talking about, if you've caught the Pretoria News on page 4, there's a good news story about what the department is doing. Really, 450,000 rands maintenance payment as a birthday gift to divorced mum, and that's what Puselezo is talking about. Let me just read you a paragraph quickly just to tease you. Run quickly, maybe you might get a Pretoria News somewhere around. But it says, a divorced mother of 3, Sally Cooper Goodwin, received what she described as the best birthday gift of all yesterday when her former husband was forced to pay, listen to this now, 450,000 rand in unpaid child maintenance. It was achieved, it was done. DM, would you want to talk about this a bit? No, just to encourage all the mothers out there that it is possible.
Yes, it's very much possible, and this case shows it. And it was taking it from the pension, the father's pension fund. People who are looking after children, parents, grandparents, even in certain cases, can get money from the parent of the child, of the other parent of the child, if that person has the money and is not supporting the child.
All right. Maybe let's take on one issue quickly while I'm waiting for calls. So maybe before we do that, I've been told that there's one caller quickly from Durban. Let's take them and we'll deal with that issue quickly. All the way in Durban, these are the people that when you talk about winter, they kind of look at you strange and say, winter? What are you talking about? It's one place where it's summer all throughout, and Dan lives there. Good evening to you, Dan.
Hey, good evening, Karabo.
How are you doing, my brother?
Okay, very well. It's just raining down here at the moment.
Okay. At least now you can feel a bit of a cold that we're feeling up here in Gauteng.
Yeah, no, it's not that cold here. Eh?
Oh, okay, all right. We'll visit Durban and we'll find out ourselves. All right, what is your question or comment?
Yeah, I got my grandson. He's now 9 years old, but my daughter, 7 years ago, passed away, and her husband got remarried. Now is living on his own, and it's been years since he saw the child. Now, can I get foster care for the child?
All right. You mentioned in foster care. We're going to find out then if foster care is actually the appropriate way to do this, or are there any other ways quickly. But thank you so much. We'll deal with that, okay?
Okay.
Get your umbrella ready before you go outside. You never know. You never know. 5 minutes after 7 o'clock, 0800 142 446. That's 0800 142 446 on Twitter. It's at DOJCD_ZA. And on Facebook is the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Maybe let's start with this one, DM, paddling back. Grandson living with a grandfather in this instance. He says his daughter passed away. Husband got remarried. Do we call it foster care if he's going to approach the courts to say, help me in maintaining the child? Or what can he do in this instance?
It would depend on how much the father is earning. So he may be able to claim maintenance from the father. If the father is not employed, then he may be able to get a foster care grant, and that would be a process involving a social worker from the Department of Social Development, and then going to court ultimately to a magistrate to decide that he can foster his grandchild. So it would really depend on how much. I would suggest that it would be better if the father is, if the father's earning, hopefully, to get a maintenance order against the father. All
right. 0800 142 446. Eldos, we're chatting to Annie. Good evening to you, Annie. Beggar parts. 7 after 7 o'clock. 0800 142 446. Bra Ali called in, and I would really like somebody to follow up. May I request? Bra Ali sounded very distraught. He wants to know, he's got 3 marriage certificates. The one is tribal, the one is from the church, the one is from the magistrate court. Which one takes priority when trouble hits?
Look, they're all, a church, if you're married by a minister of religion, particularly in the Christian churches, and that person is a marriage officer, then that is the same as being married in front of before a magistrate or any other marriage officer. We have a regime, a system for customary marriages, and that is set out in a law. And basically there are rights. The problem with marriages usually comes when either one of the parties passes away, or there's a breakup of the marriage. And it would largely depend on whether there was a an agreement between the parties before they got married. That's called an antenuptial contract.
Right.
As to how their assets would be divided or kept separate. So it's a difficult question to answer. I hope that his details have been obtained and we can follow it up with him.
I'd really be grateful. Like I said, Bradley sounded a bit distraught there. Well, we had Vusmuzi as well, and he wants to find out, and this is a term that I heard, or maybe an expression that I heard during the whole Oscar Pistorius debacle. People saying, no, he's going to go scot-free because he's got a lot of money. I mean, the poor always, or the rich always gets away with murder and the poor suffer. And he wants to find out, the rich against the poor, what procedures determine, is it true, this thing that people are really talking about, that the rich gets away with murder and the poor suffer?
Well, I mean, in the Oscar Pistorius case, he did go to jail. I know because it was such a public matter that everybody had an opinion on it, but he didn't get off scot-free.
Of course.
And the state is appealing certain aspects of the matter. Obviously, lawyers are quite costly. That's why we spend a lot of money as the state on legal aid to ensure that, it's a constitutional requirement that if a substantial injustice can occur in a criminal case and the person can't afford a lawyer, then the state must provide them with a lawyer, and that's done through legal aid. And legal aid are also being able to do certain civil cases as well. That's why we've also got the small claims court where nobody is allowed a lawyer. But obviously, as with if you can afford a senior counsel as an advocate rather than a junior one, you will probably do better. But it's up to the presiding officer, the magistrate or the judge to listen to the arguments and hopefully to take into account that this is a rich person or this is a poor person who doesn't have much money to spend on legal representation. Justice in theory is blind. That's why when you see a picture of the statue of the woman holding the scales of justice, she is blindfolded.
Correct, yeah.
So she can't see who's rich and who's poor. There are also organizations, attorneys organizations, who do offer representation to people who can't afford in particular cases, and then there's public interest bodies who will also represent people if there's a particular public importance in the case of benefit to others.
All right, 11 minutes after 7 o'clock, almost time for us to say goodbye. But before we do that, but let's chat to Annie from Eldorado Park. We've lost Annie there. Should we take one more caller quickly? All right, we're not going to do that for now. But let me just encourage you that we acknowledge all the Facebook queries which we have received, and we could not get to all of them at the same time. But don't worry about it. We are populating them, and we'll definitely deal with them next time when we do get a chance, as well as all the tweets that we've received. We'll definitely get to those as well. But one more question that I'm picking up here that we haven't really touched on, DM, is the whole issue of reintegration, and that's Mokhardi's question. And she says, we're being asked that when ex-offenders are coming out, the reintegration into the community, we should accept them, we should embrace them, and sometimes even help them to further be good people and good citizens. But what if they continue to offend? What steps should be taken there? Is it just the same steps as we've taken before to get them imprisoned?
Well, if they're released on parole, if they continue to commit crimes, then they would probably lose or have to be sent back to prison for violating their parole conditions. Otherwise, if they've served their sentence of imprisonment and they continue to reoffend, they would have to be recharged. And obviously, when it comes to, if they're found guilty, to sentencing them, the presiding officer, the magistrate or the judge would take into account that they're not the first time offender and give them a more serious punishment. But ultimately it is up to that person to decide whether they want to be a law-abiding citizen or whether they want to spend their life in and out of jail.
It's a choice that you got to make as a human being. Are you going to do things right, or are you going to do things wrong? It's all up to you. But either way, there's consequences. All right, that's how we come to the end of the show this evening. And just to urge you, it's been an absolutely amazing one. I've learned so much, and hopefully you've learned as well so much. Next week, we're going to be chatting about the Constitution of South Africa. Do you know it? Do you understand it? Have you actually looked through the Constitution book at all? Next week, we're going to be dealing with that. And let me thank Deputy Minister John Jeffrey for having taken his time to be with us. And he's back again next week, DM.
Apparently, yes, on the Constitution. I think there are. Then after that, it'll be other people, and next week I think there will also be officials from the department. Maybe just as a sort of plug, that Legal Aid South Africa has a toll-free number for legal advice, and that number's 0800 110 110. So if there were people who feel that their questions were not adequately answered, or who were not able to phone in, they should feel free to phone that toll-free number.
There we go. Legal Aid South Africa can be reached on this number, 0800 110 110. That's 0800 110 110. From myself, Karabalance, that's all that we had for you for today. 25 episodes to go. I cannot wait. As I said, next week we're going to be chatting about the Constitution of South Africa. This is one of it. This was the kickoff program for the Let's Talk Justice, Live Your Right. And we're going to be doing the second episode next week. So make sure that you are there. So that's how we come to the end of this broadcast. And let me just remind you, let's talk justice, live your right, because together we move South Africa forward. From myself, Karabalance, until we meet again next time, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening.